Okay. I guess we'll get started. It looks like it's kind of 1 o'clock. I'm Stephanie Bridges. I work here on campus for Central IT Services in the Web Development Group. So we have started converting our a lot of our managed sites to Drupal, and before that I worked in economics and I converted the econ website to Drupal. So it's kind of my history with that. We're going to talk about views today, and I have a love-hate relationship with views. It's a really powerful module. It does a lot of cool things, and it can also make you really, really angry. And I'm going to try and build some views during the course of the talk, so hopefully that kind of goes okay and things actually do what they're supposed to do. So just the basics. You have to install ctools before you can use views. And views comes with two parts. There's the views and then there's the views UI. And you know, you can turn it off on production, I guess, but then you can't actually edit any of your views or look at them. So things that are cool that you can use once you've got views installed, and I use it a lot, is views bulk operations. It gives you this nifty little checkbox that's kind of like the default Drupal content list where you can select nodes to do things to, and it has a few more things that you can do that that standard doesn't. And then calendar is a cool module that really, I just used the latest version of it on a project last month, and rather than creating a view for you now, you get a views template, so you can create a calendar based on any node that has a date element in it, and it's I like it a lot better now. So this is kind of a hard screen to read, but it's once you get it set up, there's some things that you can set to make life a lot easier for you, especially from a debugging standpoint for when you actually get into the views interface, which is a little bit intimidating when you first start looking at it. You can turn off the show advanced help warning. I never install advanced help hardly ever anymore. I do like to always see the master display. That can come in really handy. The master, you can set up things that then your other view types, pages, blocks, whatnot, can inherit from, and it's nice to be able to always get to that. I always show the advanced display settings because otherwise you forget they're there, because that little part's closed up and you can't figure out where anything's at. You can have a custom administration theme. I don't worry about that. You can set your label for the any value when you expose filters. It's nice to automatically update the preview on changes. Sometimes you might want to turn that off if you're starting to have some problems with things bogging down and not working so well. I kind of like showing the information and statistics about the view during a live preview, especially when I'm working on a view, just to see what it's doing. And I also like to show the SQL query, because sometimes you can't figure out why you're getting what you're getting and it's not what you want, and well, it's not really right in the query that you think it ought to be. And these I generally don't mess with. Clear the views cache is kind of handy every now and again. Just like everything else in Drupal, you have to clear the cache a bazillion times. If you've got devel turned on, you can get some performance statistics. If you think your views aren't behaving really well, that's kind of a helpful thing. The rest of them are, I guess, kind of self-explanatory. I usually don't mess with too much of them. So what I mean, the things you can do with views are pretty much limited by your imagination and the content you have. You can make nice user lists. I like, if I'm going to have that default front page feed's kind of ugly and you can't really control how it shows up, You can replace that with views if you happen to use a kind of a front page feed. I really like to have my own content and user admin views. Views will give you a replacement for it already, and you can modify it to suit you. And then these other things are some things we're going to do today. I set up a site for the purposes of this with a bunch of lorem ipsum data, so it's going to be pretty strange data, but I added a bunch of users and some content, and I did create some books and authors so you can see how to get views of related nodes. And then we'll try and create a calendar. I do have a little event type, but Devel Generate seemed to enter content kind of weird. So, and that's for later. Okay, so I think I'm going to sit down now because I can't do this standing up. So this is our main front page, some random data with some strange little pictures in it. So to get to your views, it's under Structure Views. And this settings page is where I had those lists of things. You can export a view, which is kind of handy if you want to move views from one site to another. The only problem is, unless you're user 1, you can't import it. So I'll just throw that out there. Okay, so first thing, we've got this Drupal user administration page that I went ahead and enabled. And standard Drupal user page looks like this. So this one at the moment doesn't look a lot different other than I did add a person's name to it. So it comes up with filter criteria. These two things are exposed. This is not. This bulk operations user is what I was talking about that you get with views bulk operations. It lets you add that select. And then the things that you get to do with it, it gives you a whole list of things. So, and whether you want each action as a separate button or you want it to select a drop down and then have your single submit. This is nice. You know, when you're doing stuff with the standard Drupal management interface, you select everything on a page, but maybe you've got 3 pages of content that you're trying to do something with. Well, you can select them all here. I usually do this. These are kind of the defaults. It'll load 10 entities at a time. If you're having problems with that's using too much memory for 10, you can drop that down. Then there's operations that you can do, and these depend on which type of entity you're using. Users have different things, obviously, than nodes. So you can choose whether or not you want to confirm, if you want to just queue it up, or whether you want to just do it. So you have quite a list of things. And then these all kind of are the same thing for everything, and we'll talk about those other places. So that's kind of the quick and dirty overview of that. And you kind of have the same thing with there's overrides for pretty much everything. The front page is one that's kind of nice. I'll enable that, and then we'll edit it. And when it starts out, it's going to look pretty much just exactly like what the default one is. But say we don't want to really display all the content and have it formatted however Drupal decides that it wants to format. You can change this to fields. Now this one you can turn on or off depending on how you feel about having to go in and check every single one of these. If you turn this off, then you need to define how you want your fields wrapped yourself. I kind of like having this turned off because I can do that. You can choose here, and this will give you the same options on all the fields that you add. So now we can go add a few fields. Basically, it'll let you pull up pretty much whatever you want. So we'll pick the title. We'll pick the body. And I think we'll leave it at that. So then once you've done that, we don't want a label. The formatter, I just want a summary. And you can pick how much of length you want. We'll do it a little shorter. We'll do 300. Now, here's where, if you want to customize your how it emits the HTML, this is pretty cool. This didn't used to exist. I don't know if Views 3 for Drupal 6 had this in it or not. I don't really remember. But I was kind of excited when this came out because you can cut down a lot of the extraneous code. So you can either choose the default element. You can say, oh, I don't need one. You can add classes. You can get rid of them. You can create your own CS class. You can use your own field template if you like, and then you have to have a template. And I'd probably not do that. No results behavior goes back to the same thing. You can hide it if empty. You can hide your rewriting if empty. And if you want to rewrite the results, you can change certain things. You can strip the HTML tags. That's kind of handy sometimes if you've got if you want to have a snippet of an HTML filtered text field in some kind of a little summary, you can strip all those out and then you'll just get some amount of text. So we'll apply and continue to that one. We don't need a label for the title. We can leave that linked. We can go back here, turn that one off, and oh, let's make that an H3. And now we have this, and it's backwards. I swear it never puts them in the order I want them in. It just puts them in the order that it feels like. So now this is what we've got. You'll automatically get your little RSS feed icon down there at the bottom for this one anyway. Because it's created a page for you. So the page shares everything that that the master did, and it'll also create. It also has created the feed. And now if we go back to the master, you can see here it'll use a pager. You can tell it to show everything if you want. Maybe you don't want to show a pager. And you say this, and you want to show maybe the 5 most recent posts. So now you get that. The criteria here, this was all filled out already. I think that probably makes pretty much sense. So now if we save that, and And go down here. Default front page, I think it was called front page. And save that. Now if you go back here, okay, the pictures are gone, the read more buttons are gone, all that stuff. So, and if you have these contextual links turned on, they're kind of handy. You hover over it and you can edit your view. So maybe we want to create a nicer list of the users on our site, so we can try that. I think they have pictures. So we'll just call it that. We won't sort them. We'll create a page. Maybe we'll call this members. And we are going to do a grid of fields. Let's do 9. And so if you don't want to create a page and you just want to create a block, you can uncheck this and you can check this. You can also create whatever you want afterwards. Okay, so now all it's showing right now is the username. We don't really want that. We'll get rid of that in a minute. So we will do the user's picture, first name, last name. And users have bios because we added some stuff to them. So we don't want labels for anything. We'll leave that. Okay, first name, no label. And we don't want to show that one. And last name, we don't want to label. And we want to rewrite him. And so you can put whatever you want in here. The replacement patterns are just tokens. And the one thing that you have to keep in mind is that if you're going to rewrite fields in your view with other fields that you're getting in your view, they have to appear in the results list before you get to them. Otherwise, they're not down here in the list. Okay, and let's wrap that in O and H4. And we don't really want to do that. We don't want to create a label. The image style, we want a thumbnail. And this is probably not really going to work because it might turn out to be not quite so bad. And the bio is going to be trimmed. And 200. And then let's rearrange these guys. Take out the username, the picture above the bio. And now you get a nice little list of that. And you also have settings up here. So with the grid, let's do 3 columns. This fill up single line is kind of a good thing. It seems to make things turn out a lot better. Not really sure why we're getting somebody blank here, but So we can save that. And if you click on that, you get this cute little list of people. You could spend some time with your CSS and have a nice little cute list. We're not going to do any fun CSS things today. But, you know, that took like, what, 5-10 minutes? It's a lot easier than trying to do these things yourself with code. So now we also have these books and authors. So I'll go back, and this is just your standard form. So we have, well, we'll look at the content types. So my books are pretty basic. They have a title, they have an author, which is distinguished from the author in the Drupal concept of this is the person that posted this node. This is an author, which is an entity reference. So if you want to do this, you have another module you have to download. But this allows you to link different nodes of different content types together. I put a date published in here, which is just a little date, and then a description, which is the body field. Then in the author field, author's pretty plain. Basically, he's got a name and a bio. And I let Devel generate all this content, so none of these things have any kind of reality. So the first thing I did, and I went ahead and did this one ahead of time, was create a list of authors with a list of the books that each author wrote. And you'll notice that the entity reference was actually on the book content type, not on the author. So there's two things you can do when you do these relationships. You can either, well, look at this, you can either do entity reference referenced entity or the referencing entity. In this case, I wanted the referencing entity, which is the one that actually contains the entity reference field. You can also link to other things. Content to the user that created it. So you could create a list of users and then a list of all the posts that a user created. So I did this. I defined it as, I called it books, just because it makes it kind of nice in the interface. And then I just have an HTML list. This content title is actually the author, and if you want to have something that tells you something that makes some sense to you in the GUI, in the management, that'll change to that now. And then the relationship that you've used with those shows up there. So I chose content title again, but this time I said use the books relationship. And so that pulls the book out. I did the same thing with the date published. My criteria is obviously, you always pretty much always want published. The content type is the author. And then I'm sorting on the author's name and then on the book's date published in reverse order. And you'll notice that I have an author and then a list of books that is that's just a list. You can group by things. So if you're going to do things like where you've got a parent item that's got a bunch of children, you're probably going to want to group by that. And so you can group that. You can create a class for that if you want. And then this is the type of list that you want to have underneath your group. I told it fields, and it can do this, or you can turn that off, like I said. Inline fields will, the things that you check, if you tell it to leave the default wrapper elements on it, it will change. The default wrapper element is a div. It will change that to a span, and then they'll just kind of go after one another. There is one little interesting thing that happens, and it happens because of the view template, the template that the view uses to generate this data. The way it is in code, they have white space and new line characters, and so if you would put a separator in here of, say, a comma, you will have white space before and after the comma, which is probably not really what you want. And so if you don't want to have anything in your separator other than whatever code you put right in here, then you need to create and override that template file and change how it outputs it. This is one of the things that I hate about views a lot. But that gives you this list. It will give you all the authors, whether they've written anything or not. I think you can tell it, I think you can come up with conditions so that it doesn't do that, but I'm not sure that we have enough time to do that today for me to stand here and figure that out. So, but now from the other side, if I want a listing of books, and at the moment a book only gets one author. These are probably not academic books, because they all have, what, like 15 authors apiece. We want content type of book. Yeah, sure, let's sort it by newest first. We will display this in a table, and as soon as you change it to table, it automatically changes it to fields. Let's not really use a pager for this. Okay, so we get some new settings. We have a title, and I don't know why everything else they like to put labels on, but titles they don't. So we'll edit that and tell it we want a title. And this doesn't matter whether you check it or not in a table format, because it doesn't put it in. So now we have that. So let's create our relationship for our authors. So we'll go down here and do referenced entity. And we'll call that the author. Actually, I think if I require that relationship, we'll go back and do that on the other one and see if, I think that might be all I really need to do for that. Okay, so now we want the author and what did I call that? Date published. There we go. Okay. And we'll want to use, oh, wait a minute, that's not what I wanted. That one we don't. Okay, let's get rid of that. I want the content title again. I did that wrong. So we'll call that, and we'll put author. And then we can, let's leave them in that order. So now we have a book list. We can change the format that the date shows up in. I'll shorten it up. And so now we have that. Maybe we don't really care that we won't link that. And so now you get that. So now let's save that. Now the cool thing about views is that, say I decide, oh, well, books can have multiple authors. So say books can have 3 authors. Okay, so let's go back and pick, let's edit this book. And let's give him a second author. And let's give this one a second author. Actually, let's give him 3. Okay. Now if we go back to that view, does anybody remember the name of those books? Yeah, oh, I can't remember either. And I don't think this is going to work the way I wanted it to anyway. I thought I told it that. You get some weird stuff here because I chose to group it and not hide that. This is the other part of views that gets a little irritating. If you want to get rid of this, and let's get rid of that. And then if we just go back and do that, then you can tell it, oh yeah, I want to show all of them. And let's break them. And then let's turn off this grouping. And then we're back here with the title of the book, of the author, and we could do it without using the relationship. It kind of depends on what you need to do, what you want to show. If all you want to show is the title, you can just do the relationship from this direction. You can't really do that going the other way. But now you'll see, here's one of these goofy books that we put 2 authors on, and so now you have them like this instead of having 2 rows, which is what we ended up with the relationship. You get them, and this one's got 3. So, and you can separate them with pretty much anything. A BR tag is kind of nice because then you don't have to care about having all this extra white space.
Stephanie, can I ask a question about the underlying data? How is it in Drupal? Because the books and the authors are related to one another.
Correct.
So I'm wondering how that happened to begin with.
Well, everything in. Sometimes you don't want to know. Drupal 7, since they pulled fields into core, in Drupal 6, the the equivalent of this in Drupal 6 was the custom content fields. If you had one field, one value for that field per node, it added it to a single separate table that all the fields were in. Drupal 7, every field, whether it has one value for that field per node, or you can have more than one, is in its own table, which references back to the original node table. And so there's some metadata about that field in this table. So my book content type would have a table for the node, and then it'll have a table for the publish date, and it will have another table for the bio, and it will have another table that references the other node type. And so the queries, that's why I said, I don't know if you can read this or not. I can try and make it bigger. Basically, that's why I said if you want to know what's going on behind the scenes, if you tell it to show the query, it'll show you what it's doing. And it makes these really horrible, long field names that date published is the name of the table, I believe. I have no idea why it sticks that on the end. But, because it's telling it it's a node type. So they come up with some kind of crazy things. But this one's pretty basic because I'm really only pulling stuff out of one thing. If we were going to do, if you want to look at this one's a little bit bigger. So basically they've selected this stuff from the node, left joined this table or this field, and then left. So, they're fairly complex queries, which is why it's kind of nice to have the views module to write that stuff for you, because otherwise you'd be writing that kind of stuff, and it's sort of more than I really want to do. And 140. Okay, so we're going to try and do a calendar, and I don't think that I have the calendar module enabled. Mm-hmm.
I'm new to Drupal and new to
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. I probably just kind of whizzed right through everything.
No problem. High-level question.
Okay.
So in views, or in a view, a field can be an entire content type, or it can be a single field within a content type, right? Am I understanding that correctly?
You would want to, the easiest way to answer that, I think, is when you add a new view, you get to pick what you want to have your view look for. So those are those kinds of things. And then you can tell it which type of node, if it's going to be a content node. Then these are the content types that I have defined on my site.
Would that be a huge list?
Oh, yes. Yeah.
That list is dependent on...
This list is dependent on what kinds of content you have defined. Drupal comes stock with article and basic page. So anything that you would define as a content type would be shown here.
So a good example, I guess, to get what I'm getting at, just so is that if I have in mind from the very beginning when I'm designing that I want to have a list of articles and of authors and books,
Mm-hmm.
and then I'm going to design those content types to be just exactly what I need on that list and that only. I know I can go in, I can create an author's content type, I can create a book content type, and then I can just bring those two content types into the view as is. So I'm not having to parse them. I'm just saying, I want this content type, and then list.
You
Is that true? Or
you can do that. I guess. You can't do table here. Oh, that's a bad choice. Let's do authors because I believe I had it to be. Okay, where it says show fields, you can show content fields or rendered entity, and then there are settings for those.
So that's what I was referring to.
Right.
Content there, is that an entire content type, the entire object with everything?
Yes, and the way that the display of that is controlled is based on how you have set. So for a content type, you've got some definitions that are common to all of them. Then you can manage fields, which is this is where you would define a field. Then you can manage the display. And so what you set here, unless you have created a custom template for this node, how you have laid this out here will be how it is created in the view.
Right.
So actually, if I wanted to create a listing of books and, like you said, you wanted to just pull in the content type,
right.
You wouldn't even need to add authors, pay any attention to them at all,
Yes.
because you would have this basic view, which is what the view is going to show you.
Yeah, just create.
So most of the time I choose to cherry pick what I want to show, and then I can lay it out how I want it. And since I can pick what kinds of wrappers I want to put on my elements, then by putting those things together, and if I want to rewrite some of them so they're all together, and then I can wrap that entire thing in something, and then you would tell your other ones that you've got hidden, because what it will do is if you hide a field and then you put the token for that field in a second field where you were going to rewrite the output, when you use that token of the field, however you have chosen in that field's setup to display it in the view, even though you've excluded it, that's what views will spit out. So you kind of have to be careful with, when you do those things, how you put things together.
I think the way that you're doing this makes the most sense. My question helped me to understand the relationship between content types and views. So,
yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, cool. Okay. Well, calendar's got a lot easier. And I don't remember. Yes. So we'll turn that on. It took me a while to figure out what I was supposed to do because, so I've enabled calendars module. Used to be when you enabled calendar module, you got some new disabled views. You don't get those anymore. Now you do add view from template, and you have all these calendar templates, and you go and you find a calendar view of the field event type, event date, and that's the one I want. And we'll call it calendar, just because we're kind of lame. Then down here for the criteria, you'll want to go ahead and pick the content type. It's really only going to pick nodes that have that date in it, but I do this. Okay. And then, if we pick a month view, the master view won't really have anything. So now you get this view, and there's probably nothing in here. There we go. Okay, so we can save that. And you get some cool stuff. You get a month view, a week view, a day, year, a day view, an entire year view, you get a block that is actually a little mini calendar, which you can put using the block setup on your calendar page, and you can use that to navigate around. And you also get an upcoming view that is basically just a list of your items. So say we wanted to go, so now we've created our calendar. Say on the front page, let's see, we go down here and it says view calendar upcoming. We'll put that in the sidebar second. And we'll save that. And then we'll go up here where it says sidebar second. And we only want this to show up on the front page. So do that. Now if we go back to the front page, we have a cute little block of your upcoming items. Did I not do that right? Oh. Yeah. I guess it does. I guess you need to pay attention. Okay, calendar/month. And I don't think that it actually gives you a chance to do this ahead of time. I think you have to actually go in and do this manually. So that's kind of a quick and dirty idea of what you can accomplish with views. I guess if people have questions, I'd be happy to answer things. Sure.
So I've never used entity reference module. Is there a particular advantage using that instead of using taxonomy?
Depends. It depends on what you want to do with it. A taxonomy is a categorization of things, and yes, now you can add fields to everything, so you can add fields to your taxonomy. But an entity reference is, it used to be called node reference.
Yeah, in CCK.
Yeah.
I mean, I would have previously this looks easy, and I'm not suggesting that you should use taxonomy at all, but I previously would have tackled this by creating an author's taxonomy and saying that you could assign any number of items from that taxonomy to the book type, for example.
Okay.
And I would have gone through some amount of finagling of my view to it would have queried for taxonomy items and then gone and grabbed associated content items. And I think that this looks maybe easier. I don't know. I guess my primary exposure to doing something like this would have been in Drupal 6. So I guess I didn't know. I don't know. Maybe I'll talk to you later about what all entity reference does.
Generally, for things that I consider content, I would make a node type for those things. If it's a categorization or a way to tag something, then I would make it via taxonomy. So I guess I would look more at it from that standpoint over how hard it is to get views. I mean, Views does a really good job with taxonomy as far as you can pick a taxonomy. And
that actually made it make more sense to me right away. The idea of the category is more abstract. The idea of something that you think of as a content piece.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Yeah. Okay.
Have you ever used views to pull from an external data source?
No. I've written custom code to do that. You would have to write some code to make views aware of the external external content, which is kind of farther afield than what I wanted to get. Views does have a really good API. I have been told that if you turn your external data into an entity, then Views knows how to deal with it. I haven't tested that out yet. I keep thinking I'm going to, but projects that people want done yesterday keep popping up. Let's see, the guy in the back here.
In the calendar that you use block,
Uh-huh.
by default gives you the mini calendar in the current month. Is there a way to make it give you like next month or the month after?
It has the navigation. I'm not sure if you can tell it where to start with. I think you probably can. And the other thing that I learned with the block, with the mini calendar, is you have to have at least one of these other ones in your page before this block will work. So let's go here and view calendar. Sidebar second. Let's see what this, if I actually can make this work. We want this. Did I do the wrong one? Yes, I did. I want this guy. Okay, so we'll say calendar like that. The other thing that the mini calendar doesn't have is a button for today. So once you've okay, yeah, it's going to, unless somewhere in your view you tell it to start on a specific month, and I believe you can do that, but generally what the default is it picks out from the current day. Then you can go through here, and if there's an event on a specific day, you'll get a link that then you can click here, and it will take you to that day's view. But you'll notice there's no way to get back to today. And my rant of the day, and now this isn't there. And my other rant of the day is, if you put a today button down here, you have to do some funny things and register it, because it will break all of your cute JavaScripty navigation. Yeah.
Can views be used to render search results for like user input or other types of session data?
Search definitely, and if you go get the if you use Apache Solar, which is a wonderful search engine, it requires you to be able to run Java applications. There is special views modules to use with that. You can use views to create results of things, of pretty much anything that it understands. And the one thing that we didn't really talk much about is the ability to query on your data. So any of the the filters that you add, you can expose those to the end user, and then you get a little form up top. So let's see. Probably, unless there's other questions, anybody wants to talk to me later, feel free. I'll be around here all afternoon. So thanks for coming, and I hope you guys have a lot of fun with views.